Hey, look at that. Welcome back to the Convo Couch, everyone. Pasta Jardula here.
And I'm Fiorella.
And Oz with the overalls is spinning on the ones and twos. Oz, am I in a good spot here? I want to make sure that I'm looking good and pretty for you. There you go. I think I'm nice now, right? Bam, you look great. How's everything over there?
It's chill. That's good. It's rainy today.
I know, right? Out here, it's like sunny, hot, and humid.
Humid? Interesting.
No, you know what? It's not as humid as it was in South Florida, but there is like a little, it is more drier heat, I should say. But there was like thunderstorms here, right? The last couple of days. So there's a little touch of humidity out there I can feel. Just a smidget. But guys, I want to thank everybody for jumping into the Rokfin right away. We have 18 people over there. Let's like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. On the YouTube, we have 64, and we also have a COVID warning, fam. They like to put that right below the stream. So now we're buried. Now they're not sharing us. They still haven't gotten us back to us on the issue of demonetization. So we are still waiting to hear back from them. I guess they're taking the whole 90 days. They never give you a reason. But it really is disgusting what they do, fam. They're really just trying to crush certain journalists out there, certain commentators, certain political analysis. So it's really just something we got to keep fighting back against. So thank you all who jumped into the Rokfin. Fam, we got a great show today. We got a lot of things to talk about. Finally, you went there, saw, you kicked ass, you were in Peru. What's going on? Give us some news.
Okay, so you guys know that the election hadn't been called officially by the JNE, which is the electoral, the electoral organization in Peru that oversees the election. And they needed to be the ones to call the election, and they finally did. Pedro Castillo has been fully recognized as the president of Peru, and Keiko Fujimori's whole all her case was thrown out. They didn't find any evidence of the things she was alleging, and so he's the president now. And yesterday when I was here with my family, they were like, "Oh, they're gonna get rid of him," because it's something that happens obviously in the global south, and also because he is like the first leftist candidate in a generation because of everything, like I said, that's happened with the Shining Path. The article I have should be released now that we have a decision. It's going to go through every single thing, including the history and why this win is so important to the global south. And it's crazy to me that this happened, because it's happening at a very tumultuous time when we have Bolivia, who just got, the people just regained control, a more leftist government as well. Then you have Chile that is up for an election with a leftist candidate coming up. You have Bolsonaro, who is highly unpopular in Brazil, and Lula coming up, rating really high in the polls. You have Nicaragua celebrating the Sandinistas revolution, 42 years. You have like Cuba, what's going on right now with we're trying to coup. We just had the coup in Haiti. So all of this is happening in the global south, and I think the lithium and the fourth industrial revolution, as we had Whitney Webb on, is going to play a huge role into how Castillo does, and he's going to face staunch opposition. So just anything to say before I get into it?
Yeah, I just want to say that, people, ladies and gentlemen, I also want to point out that this is leftist, economic leftist candidates, all right? So when we say economics, we say real left. In other words, when people go, "Oh, Joe Biden and the Democratic Party, they're left of Donald Trump," like, no, they might be on some social issues. They might at least claim to be. But when it comes to economics, they're not left. And it's really important to point that out, because this is really going to do great for poor people there, for the miners, for the workers, for labor, for the indigenous people, whatnot. It's going to give them extra resources, which is really, really important. So I just want to kind of point that out before we get going. So go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm just going to go through my tweet thread. Pedro Castillo has now officially been proclaimed president of Peru as Keiko Fujimori's case was thrown out. This is a very proud moment for fellow Peruvians. It doesn't end there. Castillo will face staunch opposition from the establishment. The fear of the coup is still there, but we must continue exposing the empire at every turn to avoid intervention, because it's coming. But even the OAS could not prove, or could not finagle better a way to say this election was unfair. That is how like clear the election was. And we're gonna look right now at the JNE, who said this is from their official account. According to our Article 323 of the LOE, the General Proclamation Act contains relevant information by the OMPE, the Oficina Nacional de Procesos Electorales, and the GEE after the observations on the electoral records, voting challenges, and nullities have been resolved. So they resolved all of that, all the things that were out there. The next tweet that I'm gonna go over is the official, the latest, right? The JNE, in compliance with the Constitution of Peru and the law, proclaimed Jose Pedro Castillo Terrones as president of the Republic on Monday, yesterday, and as first vice president of the Republic, Dina Ercilia Boluarte Segarra, both from Peru Libre National Political Party. So they are the ones. Peru Libre now has more people in government than it did before. However, combined, the other parties could oppose them. So that is, it's official as it gets. And just a reminder that Peru will be having a new constitution. This was the intention of Pedro Castillo, getting rid of the influence of Fujimorismo in the last constitution. And one of the things that Peruvians were saying, Peruvians that are happy with Castillo's win, that he should surround himself with his friends and actually maybe decentralize Peru, because everything happens in Lima, but he's not really safe there. And when I say this, I'm not exaggerating. He really isn't. He's not safe. So it would be great if he would start decentralizing a little bit and doing things in his native area of Cajamarca and kind of like decentralizing the power. Because again, we saw with what happened with Evo Morales, you got to have your people by you. And I think he should focus on the military as well. Evo Morales also was congratulating Pedro Castillo. Now, Evo Morales, more than any other leader, is very comparable to Pedro Castillo, both from the peasant class, right? The more Andean region. Both came up from nothing. They were extremely working class, and their wins were unexpected, and they were elected by a vast majority of indigenous people of Peru who have been suffering the most. So these two have been speaking to each other, and he said, finally, the JNE proclaimed our brother Pedro Castillo as president of Peru. It is a triumph of dignity and unity for the poor people over neoliberalism. Pedro will show how you govern with the people, and with the people that are most marginalized and sacrificed. So that's from Evo Morales himself. And let's just watch this video. I thought this independent news source did a pretty decent job on summing it up, and we can hear a little bit of it. It ends at 2:35. We'll cut it off there.
Let's move on now. After a long, lengthy battle over election results, Peru's electoral authority has finally named socialist Pedro Castillo as the country's next president. Castillo has won the election by a margin of nearly 44,000 votes, beating his right-wing rival Keiko Fujimori in the third bid for the presidency. Peru's election authority announced its verdict after reviewing claims of electoral fraud by Fujimori. The official result had been delayed by appeals from Fujimori, which were aimed at repealing some ballots over fraud accusations against Castillo.
El señor presidente del Jurado Nacional de Elecciones proclamará los resultados de la segunda elección presidencial realizada el domingo 6 de junio de 2021.
Now, before the Monday night announcement, Fujimori said that she would accept the result as she is bound by law to recognize the commission's ruling.
I'm going to recognize the results because it is what the law and the constitution that I've sworn to defend mandates. The truth is going to come out anyway. We are all going to work together to re-establish legitimacy in our country. Now it is our turn to face a new stage together, which will be very difficult because communism will not come to power to let it go. They want to impose a new constitution. I am totally sure that we Peruvians will not allow Pedro Castillo and Vladimir Cerrón to turn Peru into Cuba or Venezuela.
Castillo is set to take the office on July 28th for a 5-year term as leader of the world's second-largest copper-producing nation. In his first comments as president-elect, he called for national unity and urged his political rival to not put any more obstacles.
Okay.
Does Keiko Fujimori got to go to jail, fam, now, fam?
She
Rural
still
teacher
has those
turned political
accusations.
novice Pedro Castillo has pledged to redraft the constitution and nationalize Peru's lucrative mining.
Okay. Yes. Yeah, she's supposed to go to jail, but she's got these lawyers. She's got these accusations still, so technically she's still in danger. And there's actually looking into something else right now. There's a cell phone conversation that is potentially incriminating her for more corruption. So they're looking into that now. But I wanted to point out what she said. She said she is bound by the Constitution to recognize him to recognize, that she lost, but she still refuses to kind of say that he won. Like he's the president, but she won't say he won. And she's obviously her and her party Fuerza Popular are going to oppose any attempt to redraft a constitution. And this constitution, like I said before, is the constitution that remained from Fujimori himself. So obviously they don't want to change that. He plans to nationalize certain industries, bring back more of the working class power, get rid of some of these foreigners that have nothing to do with Peru, no more rich, poor people in a rich country, that sort of thing. And so he's going to, like I said, face staunch opposition. She mentioned Venezuela and Cuba, which is extremely telling right now, especially with what's happening in Cuba. So honestly, that scares me because I see that happening, right? I don't think the West is going to allow somebody that is going to threaten the neoliberal stronghold that was Peru, because Peru was under neoliberalism now for decades, right? Yeah. And so now with they mentioned copper, but there's also lithium. Yeah. There's also just gold. There's a lot of
nickel. There's a lot of nickel. Peru. I heard there nickel. Too.
Yeah. So it's really like, if I don't think they're just gonna let this go. So it's worth keeping an eye on it. But for now, it is a victory for a lot of people who are very poor, who literally would not leave until he was called president. A lot of people from the regions, and we just have some pictures I wanted to show. His triumph. He spoke and let everybody know, like you guys heard, that this was about the people, the Peruvian people. I forgot to put in his Twitter, but basically it says the same thing you guys heard. So so there you go, fams.
Well, first off the bat, I want to make sure that we get one of those hats for Oz, because Oz really needs one of those white Pedro Castillo hats with the overalls. I think he can rock it like nobody's business. But secondly, let me tell you something. What's really concerning to me when I talk to a lot of conservatives, and the reason why it's concerning to me is that because, when we're able to manufacture consent as a nation to do the things as far as regime change, like regime change, it gets nerve-wracking. And I hear a lot of people, when I had that debate with Josh Bernstein, he said, oh, and this country's trying to nationalize this like it's a bad thing. Pedro Castillo said straight up front, he's going to nationalize his national resources, that lithium, that gold, that nickel, that copper, all that stuff. He's going to nationalize that. And as we know, fam, you just said it plain and simple. The United States war machine, the imperialism, the military industrial complex, the elites, the predator class, whatever you want to call them, they're not going to sit down and take this lightly. So I am very surprised that they pushed this through, but it ain't over. You got 5 years that they're going to be jockeying to get this guy out. And with a character like Keiko Fujimori there and her family, the dynasty, we have to hold our breath every day. And I think it's also something great that you pointed out as well, is that all the centralized power in Lima is literally forces against him. A plan to decentralize and decentralize fast, will be very, very necessary for him to stay in power. And also the relationship with the military is going to be key. Because the one thing that Nicolas Maduro has been able to do, and the one thing that Cuba has been able to do, is make sure that their leadership, their leftist socialist governments, have very close, strong ties to the military. So as long as he has those ties to the military, where we saw Evo Morales, who did not have those ties to the military, he got naturally just spanked down. So these are things we have to pay attention to, keep our eye on, and continue to watch. Because even though Castillo has been crowned today, it is not the end of this story. It is only just begun.
Right. Yeah. And another thing I just want to point out real quick is that this is unprecedented in Peru. He's Peru's fourth president to date. I mean, this guy was virtually unknown. He was a teacher. His parents did not read or write. He comes from like straight up like poverty, and he wasn't even popular in the beginning. So the fact that he's president just shows you that if you have fair elections, right, and if you have a straight system where it's very transparent and it's hard. I mean, there's some things I would tweak, right? But overall, like the elections, the way I saw them, they're extremely like see-through paper ballots, and they're counted. They should be counted publicly, but they're still, counted. They have a chain of custody as to when the trucks deliver and what, and they have like, Keiko was claiming that there were fake poll workers that weren't there. And if that had been true, she would have found them. But none of these people came forward because it is that tight. So if you have a fair system, you can elect somebody like that, somebody that represents the people. But if you have the system we have, because people's ad nauseum, right? Oh, they were just like, Trump. They just, no, we don't have a fair election system here. So anybody could question the elections here. That's the problem, because we don't have the same system that Peru has. So miss me with your comparisons to Trump, because it is a completely different election system. And I'm not going to get tired of saying that, because I've seen very prominent journalists do that. And it really irks the hell out of me, because you don't understand elections. They're two different countries with two different type of systems. 3 to 5 minutes to vote in and out. We have hours, 3 to 7 hours that people have waited in line to vote here. And there's no chain of custody. So and they don't have absentee ballots. They don't have vote by mail. They have ID, and it's compulsory voting, or you get fined. They have 1 day. They don't have a month to vote. Like, it is, by our standards in America, it would be right wing.
Yeah. So I was just imagining like a drop box in the middle of the Amazon over there, like, right. You know what I'm saying? Like somebody's trying to go put their mail-in ballot in the drop box, and there's a freaking python anaconda around the shit like that, watching the drop box. But I mean,
the piranhas,
the piranhas before you're trying to walk through the water to vote for Pedro Castillo. Can't do it. And fam, I'm glad you're writing that article and pointing that out, because there are a lot of things. And we, as election integrity activists, we can sit here and say, there's some things we would like to improve, but far better system, a more transparent system, a system that is less conducive to fraud than the United States. We're supposed to be America, land of the free, home of the brave. And yet our systems are shite. And here's the situation. And it was funny, because I was on Crosstalk this morning. It will be airing tomorrow. But the last thing that I didn't get my last say in there, but Lionel was on with me. He started bringing up elections and stuff, because they realized we were talking about, what do we do to end this cold civil war? What should we do? Now we're looking at not just the person who disagrees with us as somebody who disagrees with us. Now that person's a domestic terrorist. You know what I'm saying? and the media is hyping up all this stuff. But the conclusion at the very end was, not only do we have to have uncomfortable conversations and get comfortable with them at the Thanksgiving Day table, but we also need to fix our elections, period, so that people really understand and get the representative government they want, just like they hopefully can maintain in Peru. So.
Right. Peru's greatest threat isn't unfair elections. It's the West. Our greatest threat is our own government. Like we will never elect somebody like Pedro Castillo remotely to the left economically like that ever until we fix our elections. And we will never fix our elections if we pretend that the state agencies aren't in control here. We don't have a say, and people need to come to terms with that. So that's what I wanted to say.
I think you need to understand there is a threat. It's China. China. Should I read some Super Rays?
Yeah, let's read some Super Rays, and let's get more people on the Rokfin, guys. Come on over to the Rokfin, Rokfin. Go ahead.
Yes, there's almost 200 people on the YouTubes with the mass suppression, so please, guys, hit the like button, hit the share button, get on over to Rokfin, Rokfin. We're at 40 people. Reeve Barker, thank you for the Super Ray contribution. It is always appreciated on the couch. Like that, fam? Trying to annoy you through the screen. James Evans.
It works.
It does. James Evans, keep up the energy. Keep your great energy up and going, you two, +1. Thank you, James Evans. Eddie Villegas, thank you for the Super Ray contribution. It is always appreciated on the couch. No offense is back. No offense. Thank you for the Super Ray contribution. No, it is always appreciated on the couch. Geography Pro. Well, listen, first, before I get to Geography Pro, you can have words with Eddie Villegas. You can have words with No Offense. You can have words with Reeve Barker. You got to tell them to put something. If they don't put anything,
guys.
If they leave anything, if they just leave a Ray token, we just say what we say. Now, this is Geography Pro. So it says, just saw the Vanguard response video to Jimmy for his mild criticism of not reading his super chats he sent them when interviewing Ryan Grimm. They got ratioed for their take, but the biggest thing I took from it was how they think Ryan Grimm is an ally for progressives. If they really believe this, we need to educate not only viewers, but independent media on what controlled opposition looks like. Fam, we were talking before the show too as well. There's some people they say some things, they do some things. Obviously, we were talking about Crystal Ball, right? Like a lot of people are like, why are so many people down on Crystal Ball? Because she could say a lot of things that a lot of people in her status won't say. And, the Hill did some great stuff when it came to going after some of the establishment Democrats, but you have to be cautious of people when they cross the line in certain areas. Now, I don't watch a lot of Vanguard. I peeked at some of their stuff here and there, and they tend to say a lot of great things, but every once in a while, they'll say stuff that is really, really suspect. And it makes me think that they don't understand the bigger picture when it comes to certain issues like the CIA, like the deep state, like elections. You know what I'm saying? The things that are really the power control mechanisms. So what I have to say is, once again, I don't know the guys from the Vanguard. I've never met them, never spoke to them. I wish them nothing but luck. And, anybody can continue to educate themselves on these issues. You know what I'm saying? I think, a lot of people, when we started this show, we didn't know what DARPA was. We didn't know, the deep, dark secrets of what the CIA was doing completely. We understood that we had to keep our eye on how bad and how it's connected, and all the money ties. So, Ryan Grimm is not an ally at all whatsoever. No. You know what I'm saying?
he's
should
part
understand
of
that.
Yeah.
Despite doing some great work on Assange, give him that. Other than that, a lot of question marks. A lot of the way he acts.
I don't even give him that, but
well, yeah.
Well, he did a good segment.
He did a good segment.
Finally. Yeah.
It was like an Assange for Dummies segment. So I can show it to my mom, or I can show it to my aunt and stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Why people like, Crystal Ball and those people, it's because it depends on where you're at in your journey of uncovery, discovery, whatever you want to call it. Because if you're at a certain point, for me, if you're still talking about the same thing that we did 5 years ago, like if you're still like, we gotta elect Tina Turner because we gotta expand the squad and and focus on electoral politics, I'm not gonna watch your shit because I'm not there, right? But I understand if people are there, why they would watch it. Like I'm just I'm just not there. And so for me, it's like, why are we talking about this? Like, even this question, like, I kind of don't care what they think about Ryan Grimm. Ryan Grimm is he's not an ally, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and their show, it focuses, I don't really watch it, but from what I've seen, it focuses a lot on what other people say in independent media. And, there's a market for that. It's actually one of the most popular things right now to talk about, Ryan Grimm hates this person and blah, blah, blah. We're talking about imperialism. We're going to talk about Haiti. We're talking about all these things. Like, it depends on where you're at, right? And for me, it's like, I like shows that go deeper and don't just do surface level analysis. And I think people can get there. I don't think it's nice to trash everybody, but at the same time, I think some people are opportunists and some people are here for the I'm a YouTuber and I'm gonna make money. I'm not saying those people are. I'm just saying, like, there is that sentiment. That's where I think, like, there's the crystal ball and Kalinske. I think they say the right things, but they're still talking about we have to elect more progressives into the Democratic Party. At the end of the day, if you're still doing that, eventually, for me, you're not really doing what I'm trying to do. You're not really, like, fighting the fight, because I'm telling you, we don't have time for that shit. Like, what is happening right now, what we're about to talk about, is really scary. The things that are happening, and there's no time for, like, pettiness of Bausch and all this crap. Like, I don't want to hear it anymore. Like, and it's not the popular thing. It's not going to get us the views. But I'm just so fucking done with all that. Like, I think it's important to defend your friends. Like, if people are being smeared, journalists, Jimmy or whatever, yes, like, they have the right to defend themselves. But now it's like, is this going to be a forever thing? Like, are other people just going to milk, this whole issue? It just seems a little bit much for me. I'm just, whatever.
No, I hear you. And it's very easy in this business to get very TMZ, right? Like, you can go that direction. Yeah. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit you can talk about and get out there every single day. And this person said this and this person said that. And, I never really tried to participate in that stuff, but I do call out people when I see this kind of mentality that we're going to go after the Democratic Party. We're going to get them on this. We're going to get them on that. But at the end of the day, we're going to still digress and then go vote for them and give them power. And that's important because what we're going to talk about right now is something that we talked about a long time ago. And I understand and I share the frustrations with our colleague, Steve Poikonen, who has always said, hey, listen, either get on board or get the fuck out of the way. You know what I'm saying? And I get it. You know what I'm saying? Understand the power mechanism. Understand who's pulling the strings. You don't just sit there and you bash people and say, this person could say this right, and this person could say this wrong, and then go back and say, well, we need to move these people left once we get them in. That's a stupid dead man's game. It's never going to work. It's never worked. It's never going to work. So just stop on that shit. And that's the things you got to get away from. And by the way, Jindo says, thank you very much for the super rate contribution. It is always appreciated on the couch. ITC says, thank you very much for the super rate contribution. It is always appreciated on the couch. And fam, here's a big fan of yours. Shadowban Refugee.
My hubs.
Your hubs. By the way, Mike Ungerlander called me the other day. He watched What the Fuck Are You Talking About? The little game show I did. He loves Shadowban Refugee. He says, how come this guy doesn't have a show? Shadowban, you got to get a show. My man Paulie. Mod me on YouTube so I can post the Rokfin link in the chat at Infidium Nauseum to the point of triggering those people on CuckTube. Good show. Fiorella, you look absolutely stunning today. Orale for conspiracy smoothies. Orale, Shadowban Refugee.
Shadowban, I don't see you on there. Where are you? I want to mod you. I need more mods.
Here's Reeve Barker says, fine, I'll say something. So I won't say always appreciated on the couch. Bezos Gates-backed org buys COVID testing company. Is that org buys or org buys? Backed org buys. Org buys? ORGBYS? I'm not looking. Well, thank you, Reeve.
Org buys. Yeah.
Org buys. Was that fucking these jerk-offs going into space, or was that Austin Powers? Like,
yeah, dude, it looks like a giant penis.
A giant blue penis.
He's compensating for something, guys. Anyway, let's not do that show today.
One last one at BX Commie says Ryan Grimm wasn't just against the forced to vote strategy. He's against Medicare for all and fighting for it all together.
I love I watched the Jimmy Dore interview with Joy Marie and the other organizer, and Ryan Grimm has been literally attacking Medicare for all. I think that is something important to discuss, because Ryan Grimm is elevating these accounts like the jihad people, right? And elevating them, like attacking marches. I thought these people wanted to get Medicare for all. No, they just care more about who they like and who they don't like. If they had a march, I would go to it. I don't care. I don't have to like you, but they can't do that. They're like so focused on destroying this whole march, which is happening on Saturday. And so many people are going, 45 cities. It's going to be great. Reverend Annie Chambers, I'm so glad she gets to speak. It's awesome. But, people are so hyper-focused on destroying it, and Ryan Grimm is one of those people. So, yes, he should get called out for that. He is not an ally.
Yeah. Well, in essence, this is the story of the left, right? The American left. What's the left, which is not even left in America anymore. They don't care about what's being pushed out there. They care about who's pushing it, right? It's such a little friggin' teenage little, bullshit. Let's sit at the cool person's table. Hey, this person is fighting for Medicare for all. I don't care. I don't like that person. I'm going to destroy this whole thing because I don't like them. Dang.
Where are you, Shadowban? Okay, when I find you, I'll make you a mod, but I don't know where you are on YouTube. Oh, there you are. There you are. He says, I'm here, Fiorella. All right, hold on. Let me make him a mod and we'll go into our next thing. There you go. Okay.
Tony Umonic is hanging out too, by the way, on
Tony.
He's hanging out on, and Fred Edward is there too as well. Posted the show on 5 platforms. A lot of cool people hanging out. Almost 60 people on that Rokfin. 231 people hanging on the YouTubes. Jilly Love, we always love you. Jilly Love, Morse, Lopez. Marnark is over there too as well. Embled Fate. Embled Fate, we got to see you over on the Rokfin. Shadowban, Frederick Murphy, Steve Woolbrandt. Stevie, 2 cheeseburgers Woolbrandt is his new nickname, fam. Go ahead, start the next section. I'm sorry.
Okay, so a Fox News journalist exposed Jen Psaki on the COVID censorship, and not just Jen, obviously, but the White House, the administration, because they have been lying basically about this whole thing, right? And finally, a mainstream media outlet is pushing back. Of course, it had to be Fox News because of the hypocrisy and contradictions on COVID. And we're not going to get deep into what those contradictions are, but we're just going to play the video. And the legislation they're introducing, the language, the propaganda from CNN, MSNBC, all these people about, the vaccine, even Sean Hannity came out there, doing his whole thing, and liberals finally praised Sean Hannity. It's a tipsy-topsy, top-down, messed up world we live in now. And I just got to read a couple things. Let's just play the video first, and then we'll see what happens.
And then, speaking of misinformation and the announcement from yesterday, for how long has the administration been spying on people's Facebook profiles looking for vaccine misinformation?
Well, that was quite a loaded and inaccurate question, which I would refute.
How?
Well, Peter, first of all, as you know, we're in a regular touch with a range of media outlets. Let me finish. As we are in regular touch with social media platforms. This is publicly open information. People sharing information online, just as you are all reporting information on your news stations.
But okay, so these 12 people who you have on a list, 12 individuals, do they know that somebody at the Surgeon General's office is going through their profile?
I'm happy to get you the citation of where that comes from. There's no secret list. I will tell you that these are people who are sharing information on public platforms on Facebook, information that is traveling, is inaccurate. Our biggest concern here, and I frankly think it should be your biggest concern, is the number of people who are dying around the country because they're getting misinformation that is leading them to not take a vaccine. Young people, old people, kids, children, this is all being, a lot of them are being impacted by misinformation.
The big concern, though, I think, for a lot of people on Facebook is that now this is Big Brother watching you.
They're more concerned about that than people dying across the country because of a pandemic where misinformation is traveling on social media platforms. That feels unlikely to me. If you have the data to back that up, I'm happy to discuss it.
About things that are on Facebook, I looked this morning. There are videos of Dr. Fauci from 2020 before anybody had a vaccine, and he is out there saying there's no reason to be walking around with a mask. So is the administration going to contact Facebook and ask them to take that down?
Well, first, I think what Dr. Fauci has said himself, who's been quite public out there, is that science evolves, information evolves, and we make that available in a public way to the American people.
Exactly.
I have never seen any data to suggest that that the vaccines cause infertility. That is information that is irresponsibly traveling. Okay,
just one more. Sorry, just one more. Okay, about the science evolving. Facebook used to block people from posting that COVID may have originated for a lab. That is something this president now admits is a possibility. So, is there any concern that things you're trying to block or have taken down might someday turn out to be?
We don't take anything down. We don't block anything. Facebook and any private sector company makes decisions about what information should be on their platform. Our point is that there is information that is leading to people not taking the vaccine, and people are dying as a result. And we have a responsibility as a public health matter to raise that issue. The responsibility we all have, the government, media, platforms, public messengers, to give accurate information. Go ahead.
Damn.
Holy shit. I mean, listen, dude, this type of rhetoric still works. There are very smart people out there, you know, who will repeat this nonsense right now. And the whole thing about the situation is that if you want to push people away from a vaccine, you know what I'm saying, or away from doing something, keep participating in this type of behavior where you suppress, you demonetize, you shadow ban, you take down, whatnot. I mean, they're not going to ever admit the fact that they denied the talk of ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine because they knew they couldn't pass these vaccines on an emergency status. And when you do something like that, anybody's going to be skeptical at all times. I talked to a friend over the weekend who was really like just so pissed off that family members didn't see, right? And the language he was using and the way he was speaking about it is like, I get it, you know, that's his position. He understood it. The great thing about him is that he understood my position, but a lot of people will not. You know what I'm saying? They're just going to repeat this rhetoric of what the state is saying, right? And, you know, despite all the inaccuracies and the reasons not to take the vaccine, this is just resulting to pure fascism. You know what I'm saying? Pure fascism at this point. We know that none of these vaccines have been approved by the FDA. Not that I care about the FDA in any ways, but the fact that they're pushed on emergency measures, shouldn't we be having like open, robust dialogue on what we should do or what we think we should do? And this right here, what she's talking about, is going to stop it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and like I said, we're not going to go super deep into the intricacies of that because we're on YouTube. But at the same time, But at the same time, I will say that the language she is using is extremely manipulative. It's extremely just bathed in pathos to get that whole left-wing, progressive, liberal, like, oh my gosh, yeah, we have to save our grandparents. Do you not care about people dying? The same thing that the same way people shame you on Twitter, that's what she's doing because they know it works on these people, and there's no logic there because all this guy is saying is like, you know, Fauci went back and forth. There's so many contradictions. Initially, he was like, don't wear a mask. Then he was like, wear a mask. Then he was like this and that. And like, you know, the lab thing and all of that stuff. Like now that it's come out that it's a possibility. And so he's like, so are you going to take down that information since, you know, you're taking down everybody's information? And then she's like, oh, we don't take down information. These private companies do. And I hate that argument because we live in an oligarchy where corporations are merged with the government and the big technocratic, you know, gigantic complex that we have now. That is an oligarchy. So no, you can't say we don't take shit down. We know very well. We've seen the hearings. We've seen how they manipulate. We've seen that these people, they're made to. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, owned by Susan Wojcicki, Google, like they work in tandem with the government. They've donated the most amount of money to the Joe Biden administration. So when she's saying, oh, we don't do it, she's washing her hands like Pontius Pilate, but she very well knows that that is not the truth, that she knows like that they are doing this, that they are manipulating what information is censored and what information isn't censored. And it's disgusting to me that more people on the left aren't pissed about this, because I said it the other day. When did the left start embracing big pharma? An election cycle ago, we all hated the pharma bros. All of a sudden, we trust them. They have lawsuits upon lawsuits for the side effects, for all kinds of shit. All of a sudden, you trust them on this. We can't even question it. Now you're some sort of heathen that you see people like Walter Ragman or whatever demanding vaccine passports. Like it's ridiculous, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. They're talking about putting people somewhere else because they're not vaccinated. Guys, like that is so fascistic and authoritarian. And right now with the Delta variant coming in and all of these things happening, they're considering closing down again. We cannot survive. Like the economy will completely collapse. Like, and they know this. So this is about, crushing dissent. This is about controlling the narrative. This is more than anything related to COVID. This isn't about your health. They don't care about your health. They would have given you Medicare for all and allowed Eastern medicine and all these other things. They would have. But it's really bad, and I'm really angry that the left started embracing, like state agencies started embracing the all of these people that they once were hesitant on. They were once anti-censorship. Now they're all about censorship. What is happening? And that is something to be talked about. That is something more people need to be talking about, because they have literally in one election cycle made these people all into scared, like just little mini authoritarians. Sorry.
Yeah, little authoritarians with training wheels. No need to apologize. And Mike Ungi left a super chat. He said, I like Jen Psaki about as much as I like an 0-2 count in baseball. And Pasta knows how much I like an 0-2 count in baseball. He despises when Ungi's rooting for the batter and there's an 0-2 count, 0 balls and 2 strikes, which means he doesn't like Psaki at all. And I love the way you mentioned Pontius Pilate, but also too the cryptic kind of speaking, you know what I'm saying? The way she puts her speech out, mentioning that these are private companies, once again, private companies that don't have to abide by Section 230 of the NDAA, which clearly states that you have to choose between being a publisher and a platform. And if you choose to be a platform, you are not a publisher where you cannot pick winners or losers. And if you do that, you should be liable to be sued under antitrust laws. Well, they're not being held liable. They are picking winners and losers, and they are doing it at the behest of the state, ladies and gentlemen. They are one. So people have to stop repeating this narrative that it's a private company. No, the state and Google, the state and Facebook, the state and Twitter are the same. The state and YouTube are the same. They work hand in hand with each other. They put these little theatrics on at these hearings right over here where nobody talks about anything of a value. It's just one side saying, why aren't you censoring enough, which is the Democrats, and then most of the Republicans saying, why aren't you censoring China and Iran posts and stuff? They want a selective censorship, right? Like, let's put people in jail for burning the flag, or civil liberties and stuff. And then you get a little small, tiny group of little conservative libertarians that always say, well, what the hell are you guys doing? Both of you guys across the board. You're both crazy and you're both mad. And they're united on war. The majority of the party of the establishment is united on war. They're united on censorship. And do you see any of the mainline Republicans talking out about this shit? Do you see Lindsey Graham or Mitch McConnell or Kevin McCarthy? You see them joining in forces and talking about this shit? No, they're allowing it to happen. They're going along because they want to get along. They're on the same team.
They are. They're all neocons at the end of the day.
At the end of the day, they're imperialists.
So AFP news agency now shifting a little bit, but still on Jen Psaki and the Biden administration. China is denying the U.S. allegations that we're placing that they carried out a massive Microsoft hack, countering that Washington is the world champion of cyber attacks. And Jen Psaki said the White House is not holding back on Chinese cyber attacks. And of course, we could talk to Robbie Yeager about this, but let's go ahead and play this video where she does her whole China rhetoric.
China. Fam, China.
I say that today, an unprecedented group of allies and partners, including the European Union, the United Kingdom, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, Japan, and NATO, are joining the United States in exposing and criticizing the PRC's Ministry of State Security's malicious cyber activities. And this is the first time NATO has condemned PRC cyber activities. We are not holding back. We are not allowing any economic circumstance or consideration to prevent us from taking actions where warrant. And also, we reserve the option to take additional actions where warrant as well. This is not the conclusion of our efforts as it relates to cyber activities with China or Russia.
Gotta get it in there. China or Russia, bam.
Yeah. Well, I mean, geez. I don't want to lose my train of thought over here. I was just going to say something too as well, because I was talking about Donald Trump the other day and the fact that, I do think he's part of this whole kabuki theater, the way he kind of goads people into thinking that China is the greatest enemy on the face of the earth. You know what I'm saying? When, in fact, when we talk about the SolarWinds hack, nobody mentioned the fact that there were people within our own government who started this company, who have ties to this company, who bankrolled this company. You know what I'm saying? It's within arm's reach looking at us, whatnot. But yet, what do? They get everybody off there. And it's disgusting to see a lot of leftists now. Like, we're talking about Ashton Kutcher. You already got Bosch. All these other people talking about, like, leftists talking about China. We have to watch out for China now. So, I mean,
yeah.
And why would, again, with the cryptic talking, once again, if you pay attention to the speech, right? Oh, all our allies, NATO, the United Kingdom, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, whatnot, yada, 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 yada. That is supposed to justify any form of imperialism whatsoever because our allies, we're following our allies. No, we tell our allies what to do. And if they don't do it, then we sanction and cut them off at the neck when it comes to the IMF or the National Bank. So, I mean, please, this is the same shit over and over again. It's reprocessed over and over again. My concern is, like, where the hell are the Americans at? Where are they at? Get your heads out of here. You know what? And let's go.
NATO is pretty much like the CIA at this point. I mean, they're the West. I mean, they don't do anything that the empire doesn't want. They promote imperialism. They promote especially Cold War mentality towards China and Russia. And just mentioning NATO, I know where you're going. And also, Jack Posobiec again propped up Ashton Kutcher today on Twitter. Ashton Kutcher is a CIA asset. The guy has thanked the CIA I don't know how many times. You can find pictures of Ashton Kutcher with a CIA mug, by the way. And they use celebrities. Whenever you see the government using celebrities, that is not randomly he decided to drink in a mug and take a picture and have the CIA there, guys. That's not how it happens. This is by design. This is by design. The state agencies and the government promote celebrities to get you to follow them because they are influencers. So that is propaganda. The right with China, just like the left with Russia, obsessed, so ridiculous. Stop the whole bullshit obsessions of Russia and China. That's where they get these people. Enough with that, because the right is just as guilty as the left when it comes to China. They see China under their desk. They see China all over the place. It's really crazy.
Excuse me, fam. It's China. Can you please say it right? China. Go ahead.
Fam, I don't know what to tell you.
I love when you said they see China under their desk. And here's something too to point out, fam, as well. We've been hanging around Hollywood for a long time. We know what's going on. These people aren't just chosen sometimes. They're groomed. They're groomed for a long, long time. You see a lot of young actors kind of work their way up, and here they are. Ashton Kutcher's been around for a long time. He's been groomed, and he was made to be believed that he was a big leftist when he went on Bill Maher, whatnot. And he spoke about issues like, healthcare and helping poor people out. But here it comes when they have the chance to go ahead and start World War III. Let's bring out the big guns, because a lot of leftists, a lot of progressives, not for nothing, fam. They what was the word they used when you idolize somebody back in the days?
Deify.
Deify was one.
Idolize. Yeah.
But they used a different word. There was a word for it. It was an ism they used in 2016 with people who would just love Hillary Clinton no matter what. I can't remember what it was. It was a hot word around there. But if I remember it, I'll yell it on out. But that's the truth. These people look up these progressives. They look up to these people and they idolize them. Look what AOC, no matter, she can't do anything friggin' wrong. I mean, this will be like the 15th, 16th segment in the last 5 months when we go into the third segment today, where we're calling out AOC and exposing her. But yet, the people we know, the people that we'll see on Saturday, we'll see a lot of them on Saturday. Some of them will have AOC shirts on, and you better believe it. People, get your head out your ass, understand the power structure, and understand what's going on.
100%, fam. I just wanted to show real quick this meme that's gonna haunt everybody. If you haven't seen it, you probably have.
Scared the shit out of me.
Do they make them in a factory? Do they just like build them and just send them out? It's scary. I mean, people were like, yeah, I thought they were related. No, they're not. But yeah, it's just fucking scary. I don't know. I just wanted to put that in there.
That is freaky as shit. That is like,
they look like twins. So
they make them in a factory, fam.
Biden, of course, had to come in with his, wise words of wisdom here, Uncle Joe.
Joe.
And he said capitalism is alive and very well. Well, yeah, I mean, technically capitalism is alive. He says we're making serious progress to ensure that it works in the way it's supposed to work for the good of the American people. Let's just see what he blabbers out of his mouth.
And now the forecasters have doubled their projections for growth this year in the economy to 7% or higher. In fact, the U.S. is the only developed country in the world where growth projections today are stronger than they were before the pandemic hit. At the same time, companies across the country are giving workers a raise, unusual thing. And the number of new unemployment claims has been cut by more than half since I took office. And by the way, 2 weeks ago, I issued a major executive order promoting fair and open competition, which is the cornerstone of American capitalism. Banning non-compete clauses that suppress workers' wages, lowering the price of things like hearing aids, prescription drugs, internet service, along with dozens of other actions. Folks, it turns out capitalism is alive and very well. We're making serious progress to ensure that it works the way it's supposed to work, for the good of the American people. So for all those predictions of doom and gloom 6 months in, here's where we stand. Record growth, record job creation, workers getting hard-earned breaks. Look, we brought this economy back from the brink, and we've designed our strategy not only to provide for a temporary boost, but to lay the foundation for a long-term boom that brings everyone along.
He sounds like Donald Trump. I mean, he sounds like Donald Trump. Once again, we got this, we got that. Yeah, what about the 750,000 homeless people on the street, asshole? What about 80% of the people working paycheck to paycheck? This is like when we talked to Reverend Annie Chambers when she immediately said, come on, let's be honest over here. This ain't reducing any poverty to this check. There's a little early Christmas and stuff like that. I think the drug dealers on the street are going to be happy, whatnot. And, it's the same rhetoric over and over again. It shows me that the predator class learned so much from watching professional wrestling.
Yeah, it is. Even if you like capitalism, right? Even if you're not a commie, if you like capitalism, it's not working. It's working for the very rich. Yeah. That is the way it's supposed to work, I guess, Joe, because that's the only. Jeff Bezos just took a rocket into space when people are digging out of a trash can to find fucking food. I have never seen more tents in Los Angeles in my life. People are on the brink of losing their homes. And by the way, come September, get ready for that housing crash. Get ready for it. Okay, it's going to be different than 2009 because that can never be replicated again. But it's going to happen. And by the way, now you have a lot of shortages in certain sectors. Why? Because they're not paying a living wage. Nobody wants to work for $8 an hour. No, so that's happening. He's not talking about that though. He's not talking about the fact that people aren't working these low wage jobs because they're sick and tired of getting overworked and getting nothing. And he's like, well, unemployment has been cut. That means you literally took people's unemployment checks and stopped them. That doesn't mean poverty. And again, people love bringing the GDP up. The GDP doesn't take into consideration the poverty level of a lot of people. It just doesn't. The reason we even have anything good is because Wall Street, banks, and these corporations are always backed by our government. They're always bailed out. They're fine. That's what you see when you look at that type of economics. That's all you see. So yes, it's doing great. The economy's doing great. And yes, the housing prices are skyrocketing right now. But you're going to see that come down come September. And he is just gaslighting the hell out of people. And you're right. Exactly. Sounds like Trump, a more quiet, subdued, polite version, but still saying the same bullshit, telling the American people that we're better off when we're not. And with this whole push on this Delta variant, you're going to see a lot of people continue to suffer, small business wise, et cetera, because people do get scared and they kind of start backing off as well. So yeah, it's gross. And I just wanted to point that video out because, even if you're not a socialist or a leftist, if you still believe in capitalism, it's not working. It's not. Yeah. And that's the bottom line. Not for the vast majority of American people. All you have to do is look outside and you'll find out.
Yeah. And we need a mixed economy, I think, more than anything, right? Obviously, because there's not one specific ism that will work. And it doesn't make a difference what ism you live under. If there's a predator class above, they will find a way to take all that money and all those resources and get them into their pockets and into their bank accounts, unless we, the people, stop them. And also, I just want to point out, too, as well, it's because it points out a systemic problem in society when people rather stay at home and collect the checks because they'll make more money staying at home or equivalent or just maybe a little bit less than if they did go to work. I was in Florida just the other day, and I was down in Fort Lauderdale in Sunrise, which is a nice little area over there. And I went into a Burger King real quick to get myself an Impossible Whopper and a coffee. And there was a sign on the wall, the door, fam, now hiring, starting pay $10 with an exclamation point. I was like, wow. So now I get to make $400 a week before taxes. But Florida doesn't have state taxes yet, but the federal government's still going to go in there. And these companies will never give you one more hour, more than 40 hours, even for a person who wants to work and make that time and a half, even at a shitty freaking salary at $10 an hour. Also, yesterday, my plane was delayed 2 hours, right? And I didn't understand what was going on. And finally, after waiting like an hour and a half, I see two pilots running down, the terminal. And they're running on and hey, we're sorry, we're getting on right now. What now? And then I speak to Rob and Kelsey and they tell me that there's a shortage of pilots, that pilots are even staying at home and taking the money because pilots get paid shit in this country for what they do. Like under $100,000. They get paid $70,000 around a year is the average salary for a pilot. Think about all the responsibilities those pilots have, and that's what they get paid. We have a salary problem across the board. I don't know how people can still ignore it. I don't understand how a lot of these conservative capitalists say, oh, no, there's nothing wrong with that. That person wants to make money in the free market and stuff. Dude, nobody's getting paid over here, dude. And all these CEOs, all the money's funneling into their pockets. How can you not say there's not an inequality problem? And more or less, not only that, on the top of the inequality problem we have a resource inequality problem as well, because also these companies, these corporations are buying up all the resources. So it's attack full threat against us right now. And we really got to push back against this and notice what's going on. But the most disgusting thing about this whole segment was watching Biden talk, and it's almost just like Trump, patting himself on the back Oh, and then people say it was the greatest economy when Trump was here. Like, yeah, for who? For some of the rich people that got some of those tax breaks? For some people in the stock market that made some money? I mean, come on. The majority of Americans don't have money in the stock market, and there are too many people on the streets, and 80% of people are working paycheck to paycheck. He didn't fix shit. Biden's not fixing shit. We need these people out. We need the predator class gone, and we, the people, need to take over.
Yeah, and I'm not going to get into the whole discussion about capitalism, but I will say, like, I think capitalism by definition is going to put profits over people. So that's just my personal opinion. But even if you do, like capitalism, I don't. Obviously, I'm an anti-capitalist. But even if you do, like you said, you can't ignore what's happening, right? You cannot ignore this whole thing. Like, eventually, it's if you're seeing pilots not even be working, that's just now affecting a different, in capitalist terms, a different class, right? Like, it's still the working class, but like it's affecting a different pay grade, I guess you could say, a pay grade. And that shows you that, oh, wait a minute, there's something going on here. Because why are these people so we're not paying these people enough? It's not just fast food workers, servers, etc. It's these people now. So that's actually a really important point to point out, fam.
Yeah, I think a lot of people who are proponents of capitalism, who support capitalism, kind of equate capitalism with choices. Therefore, they think like socialism and communism is lack of choices. It's more authoritarian. So, I mean, it remains to be seen, what could be done.
Yeah.
Like I said, we say mixed economy, whatever the case may be. It's a different world now, ladies and gentlemen. We had the technocratic boom of the 80s and the 90s, now into the 21st century. We have to figure out what's what. But collective money by our citizens going towards healthcare and education, that's frowned upon. That's looked upon. Oh, there's no choices. Like, I just don't get it. And like you said, capitalism is all about competition. At the end of the day, it will eat itself, and the rich will survive, the predator class will survive, and we, the people, the plebs, will get ugats, which is shit.
Yeah, exactly, fam.
Snorky Y2K, should dangerous misinformation such as saying that Biden does not have dementia be taken down? They will take it down, and they will say it's misinformation, and that's the problem.
No,
once they start playing that game, right, then anything will be taken down. That's the whole problem. And it was like, my mom's friend who picked me up from the airport, John, how you doing, John? If you're watching the show, he says to me, he goes, I was saying, well, you agree with the censorship that's going on? And he was saying, well, Trump can't say that it will be gone by the summer. The coronavirus will be gone and we'll move on. That killed people. And you can't say that thing. So they should take him down. It's like, they don't get it. I mean, and TDS has made people lose all sense of, like, you know what I'm saying?
Snarky
logic in their head.
I got your joke. Pasta didn't get the joke. I got it, though. I got it. Good joke. Yeah.
Dangerous misinformation such as saying that Biden does not have dementia be taken down?
Yeah, saying that Biden does not have dementia. Not that he had. That's why I was laughing. I'm like, that's
Snorky Y2K, you made a joke out of me. Or maybe I'm the one. I'm doing my best Joe Biden imitation. Come on, man. Eric Ball, or Boll, Boll. Thank you for the Super A contribution. It is appreciated on the couch. And Oz, I added one tweet in there inside. I think it's like slide 25 or 26 for the next section. I just want to kind of point that out as we get into stuff. If you can add that as we go along. I think that's all the Super Ray contributions. You guys are amazing. 71 people over on the Rokfin. How many we have on the YouTubes? Wait, that's not the YouTubes. 341. Come on, guys. Let's get up there. Let's get up there.
This one you guys are gonna love. People keep telling us, stop talking about AOC. I mean, we don't really talk about her often, but when she does something, we will call her out because, again, there are still people out there that I know.
Stop praising AOC. Everyone stop freaking praising her.
That love her, no matter what she does. And we hope to get through some people just by showing you her own words. the things she says on her own. So here are her imperialist takes on Haiti and Cuba. I discussed Cuba a little bit already, but she actually did an interview with somebody, right, on Cuba with The Hill. And she was, we've seen her both citing Bolivia, Venezuela. She hasn't said anything about Syria. And we'll talk about her comments on Assange, but let's just look at what she says.
The rise of everyday people in the island of Cuba and Cubans, just everyday working class Cubans and Cubans all across the island, standing up for their rights and standing up for to protest the intolerable conditions that have been happening on the island. This includes everything from the desperate lack of medical supplies and other key whether it's medical supplies, food, or other key materials or utilities throughout the island, particularly exacerbated during the pandemic. During the pandemic. I apologize. Sorry about that. So they are protesting the lack of materials during the pandemic, particularly the lack of medical supplies and other issues. And so one of the things that we're trying to accomplish, and one of the things that we want to make sure that we communicate, is our solidarity with the Cuban people. They have requested international solidarity with their movement, and we stand in strong solidarity. And one of the things that's important for us to discuss is some of the contributing factors into this situation. One thing that we must unequivocally condemn are anti-democratic actions on behalf of the Diaz-Canel administration. And we want to make extremely clear that suppression of the freedom of press and the suppression of protest and the suppression of freedom of speech is unacceptable and runs contrary to our democratic values. And we call on the Diaz-Canel administration to treat all protesters and to condemn any police violence and to reverse any and all policies of that. Now, the other piece of this is the U.S. administration. And what's extraordinarily important for us to communicate as well is the actions and U.S. contributions to the suffering of Cubans on the island as well. And that is directly related to the embargo, the U.S. embargo, economic embargo.
Okay.
Both sides in it, right, fam?
Yeah. AOCIA.
I was going to say AOC is CIA, so.
Yeah, AOCIA. Look, you can even tell her whole grift is like fledgling at this point, right? Like she's like, I'm sorry, excuse me. And this isn't the only interview. We're going to show another one where she is like having a hard time getting her words out. I don't know if it's maybe the fact that people are catching on to who she is, or she's under a lot of pressure, maybe from her handlers, whatever the case may be, she's not performing like the way she used to, because before she was more of like Obama-esque and convincing, right? This is just the surface level of what she's saying. Now, what she was saying is basically giving progressive branding to imperialist takes. Because what she's doing is she's saying, okay, yeah, the embargo, but look at all these problems that these people are having. She is using CIA talking points, NATO talking points, propaganda, that acting like the vast majority of Cubans are out there protesting against their government. No, AOC, the vast majority of Cubans are protesting to defend their government. Absolutely. Are there criticisms that they have? Absolutely. There is dissent. There is dissent in Cuba. That is without a fact. I've talked about it several times now. People want, they feel like they don't have enough money from the government. They feel like they have to do second jobs. They rely heavily on tourism. So yes, COVID has hurt their economy. It's hurt everybody's economy. She mentions the lack of medical supplies. Do you hello? That's the United States. Like, they have, in spite of all of that, managed to have really great medical care in Cuba. They have their own vaccine now. They have managed to have doctors go all over the world and help people. That in spite of the U.S. embargo. So she's minimizing the embargo like, and putting it all on Diaz-Canel, who's the current president of Cuba. And if you know anything about Cuban democracy, it's actually more direct democracy than we have, believe it or not. You don't have to be a member of the Communist Party in Cuba at all. To run for office, to do anything. You don't have to be. You can be. People choose to be, but it's not required. So she doesn't know, right? It's clear she's not well informed on what's actually happening. And if you're going to talk about the protests, right, the people protesting against the government, you must talk about the thousands of people protesting to defend their government. And that is you have to talk about that. You can't just leave that out, especially as a legislator, like, because you're manufacturing consent to say, oh, the U.S. must intervene. And then, of course, rich of her to talk about the freedom of the press. What freedom of the press do we have here?
Yeah, I was about to talk about that.
We have been, yeah, go ahead. Just like.
I was going to talk about, like, if you're concerned about freedom of the press, and you know, obviously we're going to get onto the take about Julian Assange. You're going to talk about censorship and all this other shit going on. You know, we have problems right here at home. You got some nerve to go over there and start pointing the finger at the other country. And I think a lot of people have fallen into this trap, right? Like, you know, the whole thing we were talking about, you know, Assad is a brutal dictator, but we shouldn't be there anyways. You know, the Cuban leadership is awful what they're doing to their people, but we shouldn't be there anyways. That's not good enough. Hamas. We condemn Hamas, but, you know, we shouldn't allow Israel to do these things. You can't do that. You can't both sides it. Because both siding the issue when it comes to foreign policy, at the end of the day, manufacturers consent for sanctions, for intervention, for straight up just getting involved. And I fear stuff like that when we talk about China, like this whole thing about, like, you know, some people saying, well, you know, we shouldn't really be messing around with China in the South China Sea, but what they're doing to the citizens and what they're doing to the Uyghurs is just awful. You know what I'm saying? We have to stop the manufacturing consent. And we're going to show a lot of things we've talked about in the past. You know, I don't know, I think it was over 2 years ago or 3 years ago, we showed a video of Assad driving around his country in a Honda Datsun or some shit like that with no security whatsoever and stuff like that. If you're a brutal dictator, you know what I'm saying? You're not going to be able to do those things or show up at local events and everything. So, I mean, we really have to start having the courage as journalists, as independent media, to call it like it is. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, the Cuban government has done great by their people. Of course there's dissent. There's going to be dissent in any country. But who are we to do anything? Who are we to say anything? And to say that people are in the streets protesting against this government when we know it's a small, little, tiny slice of people, you know what I'm saying? And secondly, not mention that they're being fueled by NGOs, groups like the NED, the OAN, the OAS. These groups are CIA light. And you have to mention that. You know what I'm saying? Without this money from this outside forces, you might see nobody in the streets, fam. Nobody against the government.
You can tell a color revolution by the American flags, by the vast coverage by mainstream media and every outlet, but the vast lack of coverage of the other side, by the propaganda. They all say the same thing, right on par. Like this, we've been here before. She knows that. She knows this. I genuinely believe she knows this, but she is told to say this. And that's because, you know, I think she's now an intelligence asset, but and maybe she always was. And I think that's the question. That's what we're finding out. Yeah. That she might have always been. And I firmly believe that, but you know, there's still more data to uncover in regard to that. But I you know, it's obvious. Like, if I know that this is going on in Cuba, it's not that she doesn't know. I think she knows, and she has to say these points. And she seems kind of not, I don't know, tormented or just distracted or absent-minded when she was talking about this. It really didn't add to the credibility. I mean, it looks really bad. And she's, again, manufacturing consent, as you said. It's a wedge. You're driving a wedge. You're saying, but because you're saying, oh, these people are protesting these awful conditions. Look at the awful conditions we have in the United States of America. You don't have to like Cuba's government. And I say this all the time. You can hate Fidel Castro. You can hate communism. You can think that it's not the best thing. You don't live in Cuba. Don't live there. Like, if you don't like it, don't live there. That's fine. You can say, you know what, I may disagree with them, but guess what? let Cuba handle their shit. Do not push U.S. imperialism. You can say that, but what you don't say is, oh, this brutal dictatorship, blah, 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 and all this crap, because that is different, and that manufactures consent.
Yeah, that's the issue too. I have with like a lot of like I see now too as well. Remember we talked about a year ago about Donald Trump saying like, you know, the generals don't like me, the soldiers love me, but the generals don't like me because they want to end this war. They want to stay in these stupid wars, and that's what they want. But yet, at the end of the day, he's, you know, engaging in arms sales with the Saudis and Israelis and arming all the oppositions to these socialist governments to the T with NGOs, whatnot, and supporting regime change and stuff like that. What I'm trying to say is that there's a thin line right now. We have to understand this right here today. We have to say it loud. We have to say it proud. There's no more half-stepping, right? That was a song by Big Daddy Kane. You won't know that, fam. That's hip-hop. Ain't no half-stepping. But you can't do it no more. You can't say shit like Assad's a brutal dictator. However, we shouldn't be there. That doesn't make a difference. You're saying something that the CIA wants you to say. Because once you plant that seed that Assad's a brutal dictator, that will always give an open door for American imperialism to come on in, and will be justified through the people because they'll have it in their mind that Assad is a brutal dictator. Same thing I heard a lot of conservatives say, Trump fans and friends of mine and stuff like that. Well, yeah, but if we pull out of these areas, won't China just kind of go in after? It's like, well, you have no evidence of that. But the fact is that you act like you don't want a never-ending war, but yet you still kind of justify it at the very end. Their foreign policy habits of going ahead and saying, well, you know, these wars are stupid, but we have to do it to stop this dictator, are very equivalent to, oh, the squad is not the best, but yet they're still more aligned with us, so we have to vote for them. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like it's the same thing for both sides.
Yeah. And it's, you know, since you said something about, you know, ensuring democracy and press freedom in Cuba, let's talk about how much she's ensured press freedom in America. Because as far as I know, AOC hasn't ever said Julian Assange should be free. AOC instead has ran away from reporters asking her questions. And this is where finally she said something about him in 2019. Let's listen to what she said.
Do you have a comment on Assange's arrest and indictment? I think there's a lot of concern, you know, even for folks who are, who disagree or are troubled by Assange's past. To my knowledge, the specific charges that were raised for his extradition were even ones that the Obama administration entertained but turned down because it was seen as kind of beyond the pale in terms of an attack on journalism and journalists. And so I'm concerned by that specific aspect, very much so in this situation.
The only people who are concerned about his past actions, AOC, is the military-industrial complex and the CIA. Sorry, fam. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, again, it's this whole, well, I'm going to dip my toe here, I'm going to dip my toe there, because she has to signal to progressives, but she also has to signal to the establishment, I'm going to play ball at the end of the day. I will say what needs to get done. If I were a state agency and I wanted to take over and convince people that to do what I wanted them to do, I wouldn't directly oppose everything they do. I would put out somebody who pretends to embrace their ideals, their branding, but throw in some signals to say, hey, you're going to play ball. That's what I would do if I was a psychopathic, you know, oligarch, state agency, whatever. Like that's what they're doing now. They've given up on the Nancy Pelosi's of the world. No, it's theater now. She gets to pretend she opposes Pelosi. Democrats get to pretend they oppose Republicans. Meanwhile, who's in control? The national security state apparatus and the military-industrial complex. It is that simple, you guys. It is that simple. It's not conspiratorial. That is a fact, and you can tell by the candidates they're putting through. Because what better way to convince people to continue relying on the illusion of the two-party system than to actually give them a little bone of what they want. Continue dangling that carrot so they continue playing the game over and over again.
And fam, it's the illusion.
Illusion.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, any other comments coming from the show? I'm going to defer to the caucus leadership. Go right ahead, fam.
So AOC's comments on Haiti are also pretty terrible, and they were called out by everybody. So Garland Nixon said, AOC basically said, don't invade Haiti without a plan. Rokana, Bill Kristol, is one of the most thoughtful voices in defending liberalism and democratic institutions in our country. Rokana literally said that. This is what now passes for progressive politics in the blue brainwashed cult. Exactly. That's what we're telling you guys. It's not real. Danny Haifog, AOC stumbles through this question on Haiti and essentially advocates neo-colonialism by claiming the U.S. should support Haiti and selecting a new leader. The only thing the U.S. should be doing is getting out of Haiti. U.S. interventions and coups are the root of the crisis. So, Anything to comment before we watch the video?
No, I'm going to comment after the video too, because I mean, once again, we have to think about who killed the president right now in Haiti and who is our biggest puppet government in the global South. Just think about that, ladies and gentlemen.
I think there are an enormous amount of concerns. I, first of all, applaud the withdrawal of troops from Afghanistan, but this is, the intention of that is to not relocate troops from Afghanistan to anywhere else. And I don't believe that was the intention in withdrawal from the White House either. But this situation is extraordinarily delicate and extremely fragile. And I do not believe right now that the introduction of U.S. troops particularly without any sort of plan, sets any community, whether it's the U.S. or whether it is Haitians, up for success. I do believe that with the assassination, the people of Haiti and the country is in a very delicate moment, and our role should be in supporting a peaceful transition and a peaceful democratic process for selecting a new leader and avoiding any sort of violence, but particularly in really carrying any, supporting any due process for justice here in the United States for any actors that may have been complicit on U.S. soil.
Bam.
God, man, this woman has just word salads, left and right. I mean, Jesus, fam. I mean, this woman cannot take a position on everything. She's all over the place.
Yeah.
She's awful on foreign policy. This is something we talk about all the time. I mean, she has gotten an F in foreign policy. So.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the things I wanted to point out right away, she said, this is how you know she's signaling to the establishment. She said, I believe it wasn't the intention of the White House to, put troops from Afghanistan elsewhere. That was exactly their intention. That was exactly.
We knew they weren't leaving that region. We knew that.
We have private mercenaries. We've always had them. We were never going to stop. And now they have no accountability to any institution because they're private mercenaries. She knows, she is blatantly lying, gaslighting the public. It is very obvious to me. She's uncomfortable this whole time. She's fledgling, this is not the normal AOC performance we get. So I'm very, very interested in her behavior here too. Another thing, she says we need to support a democratic transition. If this was any other country saying that, I might buy it. But when we say that, we mean we're going to involve ourselves, and we already have. So when you use that language, it's so broad that it could mean that, and it could mean something else. So again, signaling to the establishment, this is what we're going to support democracy. Anytime somebody says that now, regime change playbook. We already know what happened in Haiti, and you can talk more about that if you want. But I just think she's using progressive language to push imperialism. And she also said, so if the White House lays out a plan, it's okay, is what she's saying.
Shit.
No, it's not. we need to stay the hell out. That's all you need to say. You know what? We need to let Haiti deal with the situation. We need to stay out. If the U.S. government is involved in this, they need to be held accountable.
Yeah, she should say that. We've been involved far too long. We need to stay out and stop intervening in people's business, plain and simple.
That's it.
And she shouldn't be trying to justify any other actions, but she is. She's justifying other actions and whatnot. And that's going to really, what she's going to do is she's going to dupe a lot of progressives to go along with her. I guess this Saturday we'll see at least 3 AOC shirts at the march. At least. That's going to be my guess. More than TYT shirts. But at least 3 AOC shirts. That's what I'm guessing. Also, something that I wanted to bring up. This is something that was just out a couple hours ago. I didn't even get a chance to talk to Niko about this, but put this tweet up over here. You check it out. Haiti's president said there hadn't been one single jab administered in Haiti. They used holistic methods. He refused the WHO's 750,000 Johnson & Johnson jabs. DEA implicated in his assassination months later. White House press secretary says U.S. will personally send jabs to Haiti 2 days later. You can draw your own conclusions. I'm just putting the info out there because enough people haven't been talking about it. Haiti's numbers were extremely low before Moises' death. Their holistic remedies have been working there. U.S. force feeds vaccines onto Haiti's people. At the very bare minimum, this is unethical behavior, not unlike we've seen in the West exhibit in its treatment of African and nations of Afro-descended populations in the past. And it's never turned out well. They don't do shit for the good of Black people. And I mean shit. And Niko put that out there. That's something interesting. I've been talking to a person who used to work for the Haitian government, who's supposedly an independent-minded thinker. I'm going to get more information on it. Hopefully we can have him on the show. We need to get answers to understand what was going on in Haiti, because there are people who are saying that this particular president got in under the mindset that he was a puppet of the oligarchs and the West. As things started to turn out, as we started getting later on in his administration, it turns out he's not maybe such a pet of the oligarchs of the West. Either he had a turn of heart or he was trying to play the game. Who knows? We need to educate ourselves more on this. So I plan on reaching out to talk to more people in the region to see what they have to say about Moises so we can tie the knot together and understand why they had him whacked. Because it's obvious that the West was involved. That we know. But we have to find out for what reasons why and then kind of move forward.
Yeah, I mean, from what I was reading, he was actually highly like a puppet president, an oligarch. And then that relationship started souring. And the Haiti was up for elections in September. And of course, what a perfect opportunity. Get rid of this guy that's no longer useful. Whatever reason he, was no longer useful, we exactly don't know. But there was an election coming up. So I definitely think that had a lot to do with it. Perhaps the manipulations by the West, what Niko said, that could definitely play into it as well. But I definitely think it had something to do with Haitians being able to elect somebody they want, because that would put a damper into certain plans. So
I want to give this piece of bait, this piece of meat to our audience, because I know they're so good at finding stuff. So maybe we can find out their treatments of the COVID and what they were doing when they talk about holistic and whatever means of treatment they were doing. Let's try to figure out what's what, because I don't know if that is true that they've turned down 750,000 jabs of Johnson & Johnson. That's very interesting to kind of think like, wait a second, hold on, let me see what's going on. It also helps with the storyline as far as how we can treat COVID, as opposed to getting an emergency vaccine to keep other people safe,
Yeah. And, just along the lines, fam, of like talking about manufacturing consent because it's so easily done. You kind of already said it, but Americans, Westerners, stop talking about Assad being a brutal dictator, because I see this a lot on the left, even on people who, get accolades on a lot of things regarding Syria. Because this is Kevork Al-Masian. I am going to have him on the show soon when we get back. President Bashar al-Assad and his family went yesterday to the wedding of wounded SAA veteran Somar Sultan and his bride in Jardula in Syria. And this is the overdose of police state and brutal dictator. Looking at these photos, it does not seem like this guy is a brutal dictator. He's at a wedding. If like Pasta said, if he was, where's his security? He wouldn't be able to freely do this. He would be dead.
No, he would be dead in a second.
So okay, there's Vanessa Beeley. Vanessa Beeley constantly talks about Syria, right? She's been there. So has Eva Bartlett. What she's seen is a reverence and an admiration for Bashar al-Assad. She talks about it all the time. Here is President Bashar al-Assad with his family visiting Tartus Sheikh Badr right now, and Syrian Arab Republic Truth. This is from Real Syria, and she's retweeting it with more dictator travels. And there he is again, just traveling, and people just outside, like, excited to see him. He's a secular president. It's really, I just, you know, I'm not saying the guy's a saint, right? I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying is this whole knee-jerk reaction to call him a brutal dictator. I want to see your evidence if you're going to say that. That is a very hefty accusation. And when you say things like that, you manufacture consent, right? Because Israel is bombing Syria again, as of a few hours ago. And we still have portions of our left getting accolades about Syria while spewing CIA talking points like Assad being a brutal dictator. These comments manufacture consent for intervention. It's interesting and rich for us to talk about dictatorship as we're increasingly becoming fascistic. We haven't even begun talking about the door knocking. We're going to talk about that. We have to talk more about, you know, what's going on here, because the things that people are saying are crazy. We did a whole show on COVID on Rokfin only, but like, you know, it's to me, it's scary times, Pasta. I have to say this. We have still the audacity to call Castro, Maduro, Bashar al-Assad. If these people aren't supported by, if these leaders aren't supported by their people, good, like let the people handle it. I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing the propaganda to manufacture that. And if that's the case, if that is happening, let these countries handle it. But I have not seen that happening. And it's so obnoxious to see just a lot of us continue using the same talking points, because again, just like AOC, you're still both siding, you're still leaving that wedge to allow for us to intervene.
You know, a lot of the people who call me up and we speak whatnot, some of my friends that really give me advice on the show, and, you know, mentors of sorts, you know what I'm saying? They always talk to me about the power of language and how important it is, being the fact that I can't even speak it. When I'm able to get some words out and stuff like that, and the things I talk about, how powerful it is. And this is something that the CIA or the military industrial complex or the predator class, whatever you want to say, has put out there. This type of kind of language where you can say, oh, he's a brutal dictator, but we shouldn't be there anyways. That's the point. No, we have to stop doing it. I know it's the third time I'm saying it in the show, but it is so important because, you know, I used to be okay with that same language too as well, to just say something, because the main point is that we shouldn't be intervening whatsoever, but it does matter because the words are powerful. And if we blanket somebody as a brutal dictator like Assad, who, once again, a couple of years ago, we showed that whole, I was just looking for it right now, Assad driving around in a Datsun, right? Or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You couldn't do those things if you're, here it is, a Bashar al-Assad film driving himself to the Syrian civil war's front line. I mean, come on. You could never, ever, 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 ever do something like that if you were a brutal dictator. The people will kill you right away. You know what I'm saying? And they have pictures of Castro doing that same shit.
I know, somebody said in the YouTube chat, dictators can be popular. If you look at Hitler, yes, that was a specific thing. Like, technically you could, but he wasn't being brutal against his own people. Do you see what I'm saying? He was being brutal against like 6 million Jews. Like that he was being brutal against them. He wasn't being brutal. He wasn't like being brutal against his own people, so to speak. I haven't seen evidence of Bashar al-Assad being brutal against his own people. I see him been brutal against the white helmets. I've seen him been brutal against people trying to intervene in his country. But again, who are we to really meddle in those affairs? That is irrelevant. And when it came to Hitler, because a lot of people always bring this up, the United States were the last ones to go in there. There was that meme I shared that I got banned on Facebook for, where it was like the USSR army, like with a bunch of like a giant, like the US was a giant T-Rex and the USSR was a bunch of soldiers. And that's what happened. Like so it's not like the United States goes into countries. You can talk about Rwanda if they don't have a reason to go into them. So that's just food for thought in regard to that comment.
Yeah, and I think Hitler, he was an imperialist. He went around, he kind of, the Nazis. And let's not forget, the Rothschilds supported the Nazis, right? They funded the Nazis, they funded the communists, they funded everybody, you know what I'm saying? But it's a different situation when you have a war-torn country, you know what I'm saying? And that's it. Like, as far as Syria is involved here, you know what I'm saying? It's their own country. They're not like, this is not like a guy who's kind of expanding an empire where people loved him. Like, I think it was the Sweden, or was it the Swiss? I can't remember. When Hitler went into another country, one of the first countries he invaded, they greeted him with roses and flowers. They wanted him to come in.
Right.
So, it's a whole different situation than a war-torn country where you have a guy who can drive around in a Datsun, when there's missiles and bombs flying and other people are killing each other. I'm sorry. You know what I'm saying? We have to watch. Language is powerful. And from this point forward, we have to make sure that we don't say these words and manufacture consent to the CIA, because they're the ones who have planted these mechanisms, and the left shouldn't be running with it at all.
No, not at all. 100%.
Black in the Empire says, come to see some real news. Came to see some real news, as I'm burping over here. Sorry. Came to see some real news. Thank you, Black in the Empire. Thank you for the 85 people who are hanging out on the Rokfin. We had over 400 people at one point. I think we're 353 on the YouTubes. So, fam, anything else we got to talk about this show? Or are we done?
You forgot Snorky Y2K. Actually, Hitler killed atheists, homosexuals, journalists, and people with birth defects before the Jewish. You're right. He did. Hitler was an awful person. Nobody's denying that. I want to make sure that's very clear. But I'm just saying the situation was different than what people are making Assad to be. They're making him out to be like this Hitler-esque figure, and I have not seen evidence of that.
And even though
he's, both were popular, right? Yes, you can't deny Hitler was popular. I'm saying this is a different situation. I'm not just basing it on his popularity. I'm basing it on the fact that he has all kinds of people like saying, hey, this isn't what's happening, guys. You guys are spreading, propaganda, Western propaganda. The fact that we have vested interest in trying to sanction Syria and trying to get there. The fact that Israel's constantly bombing them. This is a whole different situation than Hitler, because the reason I mentioned Hitler is because that's the go-to of a lot of the knee-jerk left to like, oh, you're supporting Hitler. And it's like, not everybody that disagrees with you is Hitler, guys. But they run with this whole thing. So
and Hitler rolled deep. Hitler had a posse all the time. Hitler couldn't go out in a little motorcycle by himself around the country. He would have got killed. At one point, with a war-torn country, he would have got killed. Hitler rolled deep. You know what I'm saying? I'm just kind of pointing out the fact that after years and years and years of civil war, once again, I don't even consider it a civil war because it was ingested by, the military-industrial complex, the Pentagon. You know what I'm saying? This was a funded opposition to Bashar al-Assad. He can still now roll around his country, go to weddings like this. You know what I'm saying? We have to be careful with these words and stuff. The people of Syria, they are the victims here. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like Bashar al-Assad had a beef with just somebody and just couldn't put the opposition down, and the opposition kept fighting. No, his opposition was heavily funded. You know what I'm saying? They were funded to the T. This goes all the way back to Obama. You know what I'm saying? This goes all the way back to the moderate rebels who were funded against them. They got weapons from the West to fight against Bashar al-Assad, and that's a big difference.
Exactly, guys. Well, guys, thanks so much for watching. What Brian Carroll said, I feel like family here on these streams. So I'm glad you feel like that. shout out to all the moderators and Jilly Love and every Monarch and everybody. Morgan Carey, I see you on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching, guys. We really appreciate it. You, our Patreons, our support, whatever, we're still not monetized, and that's definitely been awful. But we're going to continue doing this. We're going to continue expanding our coverage, giving the best that we can do. And yeah, fams, always be watching the Empire. So
yep. We have a lot of stuff coming up to talk about, a lot of foreign policy. Fam, we got to talk about the weather. We got to talk about what we really never got and what happened in Canada with all these people dying and why and what that could be. We got to start exploring other avenues that we haven't talked about. We got to still continue to talk about what's going on with our relationship with China. I've been listening to a lot of James Corbett lately. What some of the people in our audience kind of pointed out, me and Niko had a whole long conversation about what our possible relationship with China could be. Is this professional wrestling? Is it professional wrestling when it comes to China? We know it's professional wrestling when it comes to the Democrats and the Republicans, right? Within our Congress. But there's a lot more that needs to be told out there. And it seems like there's a lot of forces pulling the strings. And it seems like whoever's at the top really is not crazy about a lot of us people over here. They feel like we're pests in the way and we're sopping up too much of their resources and they just want us gone. And they want to, advance their forms of AI and transhumanism. So they don't need us anymore. So there's a lot of things we have to talk about. It is scary times. You see the censorship, you see the fascism. We saw what Jen Psaki said, the Biden administration. So there's a lot of stuff we're going to be talking about, guys. It's interesting times. We want to thank all the people who supported us on Rokfin today, all the people who left those Super Ray contributions. Let me tell you something. They are always appreciated on the couch. And AREM comes in and says, as always, so much to the good. We love AREM. AREM is wrapping up the shows now. She's like, good night and good luck. Thank you, AREM. We love you. For Pasta Jardula,
Fiorella,
and Oz with the overalls on the ones and twos.
Convo out. There's a thunderstorm going on. Hi. Bam, it's Psaki.
Psaki.
Psaki? It's Psaki.
I always say Psaki.
Because you think